So the question was, given all the previous examples of what a bad job we've done, how we've technologically overreached and had problems, why should we, paraphrasing you, how much do we have to know before we know enough? I think it's important to come back to the fact that this is a risk-risk decision, which is very different from a risk-benefit decision. So let's say we were doing geoengineering because we wanted to make the weather a little bit better. Then we'd be balancing, the weather's, I like it the way it is, actually preferred nature. And so then we'd be balancing some risky geoengineering against the benefits of making the weather a little better. And in my view, the right time to wait until we did that would be infinity. That is never to do that. But that's not the choice we're dealing with. We have a lot of CO2 in the air. We're putting more in. It's hard to stop quickly, and the risks of that are very large and not well known. Based on all the same climate models that predict the risks of CO2 in the air, to first order, it appears that slightly reducing the amount of sunlight might slightly reduce the overall risk. That doesn't prove it's true, but that's the outcome from the same science that tells us about the risks of CO2. And so the choice is about a risk-to-risk choice, balancing the unknown risks of CO2 in the air, we know they're serious, but we don't know all the details, against the risks of the CO2 in the air with a little bit less sunlight, that is, with a little bit of aerosol in the air. And that trade-off is much harder to judge. I have no magic formula for how to do it, but I'd say one thing. I think the mental model that says we do lab studies until we decide whether we're deploying it full scale or not really doesn't capture the way it would make sense to either govern this or do it. It would be much more sensible to work our way up very slowly by looking at natural analogs like the sulfur that's already put in, say, by shipping, and by, if we do decide that it makes sense to try it, and I don't think that it makes any sense, I should say, to do this at scale now, but if we did decide in the future, contingent on finding the climate sensitivity is very high, that is, there was a very high risk for the CO2 we put in the air, then presumably you'd work your way up very slowly, monitoring as you went.
Okay, thanks very much. We'll have some time for some questions at the end. So.